Learn about declaration in JavaScript. So let's get started. So to start the video, we are going to first fire up our favorite tool, Node.js. So I'm going to press T together to launch the terminal. It is loaded. I'm going to type node here so that to define a variable in JavaScript, we use the word var and then our variable name. After pressing enter, you can say that you have defined a variable. So it is as simple as that. Now, here is defined out of any function or object, right? So this variable is defined as scope and it has the value of undefined as of now. Okay, it has no value. Alright. So now let's find variables inside a function. Create quickly, and as you know that are also object in JavaScript, and as you are aware that functions are also a class member in JavaScript. To define a variable inside it var a and let it be 42, and let's define b and let 43. Forward to put a semicolon in the variable declaration of a, but let it be, and then we are going to print these values a, b. We are not going to add anything so that I can show you guys what I wanted to show. Okay, so we have defined our function. Let's try it out. 42 and 43 is the answer. Okay, now here in this statement, variable a defined inside the scope of this function, and variable b here is scope of global variables. Going to ask, you are going to get us here we have b, which is square 43, right? When it, as I have seen in my previous video, that this is a function invocation pattern, right? So are going to result to but the variable a here is not defined in global scope, so it is undefined as declared here, and it is not coming from this place. Okay, as variable, the variable which is defined inside a function is going to be hosted to the top of the function. So have defined a variable before using it or not. If you are going to define it later, that it will do, because very top. And so let's consider another function, printer. Okay, and now we are going to print console our variable v. Okay, and as you can see here that variable is not defined. We are going to print some junk statement. Workout, and now we are going to define v here as Raja. Okay, so what do you think printer is going to print? Printer is going to print fine, because this is going to be hosted to the very top of this function. So when the JavaScript interpreter start parsing this function, this statement will float to the top. So it is then the function body starts, and then var v equals to undefined, and then this statement comes console.log. If we are going to do call our statement, it is going out undefined for this line, because it has already found v, which is declared, but the value is undefined. Value will be assigned to var v at this particular line. So if you are going to quickly write version of this function, and now it will show you the value is Rajat. Alright. Now if you are going to write a function like this where you are doing the variable declaration and assignment like this thing, so here you need to understand that variable a and b will be declared first and initialized to the value, and then variable the value of b, which is undefined at this point of time. So a is going to get the value of undefined. If the statement is over, then b is initialized to the value of 10. So this statement is going to print undefined for a and 10 for b. Okay, so let's quickly test it out. For b. So make sure you don't fall prey to this kind in JavaScript. Tell you guys about this thing. Okay, so this comes var variable. Let's move on to some new in ES6, and that is let, and these are modern JavaScript of version . Now let is a new way of defining variables, script 2015 and later. Okay, so let's quickly see how to define variables using let. So it is replacing var with let. So let a equals to 42. Alright. Now difference between using let and var. Okay, the thing is resolve the nearest located in, and var resolve the nearest function it is located in. So what do you mean? See a practical example about it. So let's suppose going to define a function using simple curly braces and redefine this variable inside this. Okay, and print the value of v here, and let's try to reprint the value here as well. So what do you think this program is going to output? It is going to produce 10 and 0. Why? Because if you see this block, let v equals to 10 is defined inside this block, and as I have already told you that let binds to the nearest block. Okay, so this statement binds the value 10 to the variable v for this block, and as soon as this block gets over, this declaration will again come into force. Okay, so this declaration will only be enforceable inside this block and not for the entire function, as we have seen for the case of var keyword. Okay, so let's quickly test it out. And 10 and 0, just like we have discussed. Okay, you can quickly write a similar program replacing these let with var keywords and test the program yourself, so that you can be clear about the differences between let and var. Okay, and I am leaving that thing as an example for you guys to try. Okay, so that is the difference between var and let. And then there is one another keyword, that is const, C-O-N-S-T, which is also used for declaring variables. Okay, so one thing to notice is that you cannot redefine something once it is defined in that particular block. So let's suppose we have defined a equals to 42 already in this scope, and if we are going to do it again, it is going to throw an error that identifier A has already been declared. But in case of var, you can define it and redefine it. Okay, I cannot choose that A because it is already defined. I can use some other variable. Now I can redefine B as many times as I want, but in case of a variable which is declared with let command, it can only be declared one time in any particular block scope. So I can only define V in this particular block one time only. So let's quickly move on to const.
So const is basically used to define constant, which means the variable's value is not going to change in the future. Okay, so let's suppose I want to create a constant like the value of pi, right? It is 3.14 and dot dot dot, right? So let's suppose I want to create something like that. So I'm going to define it like this. Okay, now const are also block scope, just like our variables defined with let identifier. Okay, so we cannot define yet another pi variable in this scope. As of now we are in global scope, so we cannot define other variable with the same name pi in this scope. So if you are going to do const pi again, it is going to throw an error that it is already declared, right? You can clearly redefine the very same variable inside a new block, right? So if you are going to do something like this, the output's gonna be 7 because this pi is defined inside this block. So this pi is only concerned about the scope of this block, right? So since at this line we are in this block's scope, the value of pi resolves to be 7 and not 3.14. Now once we are outside of this block, the value is again 3.14. okay, so it just behaves very much similar to let, but the thing is that you cannot change the value of our variable pi in the future. So if we want to assign something like 3.145, we cannot do it because constant variables don't allow you to change their value in future. Okay, but there is a catch. The values to our constant variables cannot change, but that does not mean that the objects referred by these variables are immutable. What do I mean by that? So let's suppose I have a object literal that is Rajat, and it has properties like name. The name is Rajat and age is 29. Now if I'm going to define a constant variable with the name person and I'm going to assign Rajat to this, so if I'm going to print person, it is going to output the very same object which I have referred it to. Okay, but if I want to change the property name of my person, I can very well do it. Okay, so now my person's name property is Ravi. Okay, so although I cannot assign a new object to person, I can change the property of the object it is referring to in the future, and that is exactly what I meant by that the objects are not immutable and they are very much mutable. Okay, so this object is mutable here, and I have successfully changed the name property of my Rajat object, right? But if I want to assign person a new object, let it be A, I cannot do it because it is a condition enforced by const. This const keyword that you cannot reassign an entirely different object or variable to it, but you can change the property of any object it is referring to. And there is a convention with const keyword. Although the variable following the const keyword can be in uppercase or lowercase, mostly the JavaScript community uses all caps for defining a constant variable. So as you can see here, I have used all caps for defining my constant variable, and I have made a typo here that I have defined a variable Rajat in all caps as well, which is not a part of this convention, and it should have been all lowercase, but I somehow committed that mistake, so don't do it. But yes, for defining constant variable, make sure you are following the convention and you are using all caps for defining new constant variables. And with that, we have come to an end of our video tutorial for var, let and const and how to define variables in JavaScript. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel so that you can get to know more about my articles, tutorials and career advices as soon as I publish them on my YouTube channel. And I'm also, so make sure you subscribe to this channel. With that, this is your guy Rajat Saxena from rajatstudio.com signing off. Take care. Bye-bye.